You are crouched in the dark. It is 1 million years ago. The sun dropped an hour ago, and the African savanna is now a completely different world. Something is moving 30 feet to your left. You can hear it. You cannot see it. You have no fire, no weapon sharp enough to matter, no shelter with walls. You pull your knees to your chest and stay completely still. This is every night. This has been every night for your entire life, for your parents' entire lives, for every human ancestor stretching back further than memory reaches. Darkness means danger. Darkness means waiting. Darkness means surviving until the sun comes back. And then one night, something changes. Not a war, not a migration, not a new tool, a spark. And from that spark, everything about what it means to be human begins to shift in ways that will echo for the next million years. Let's start with what we actually know. In 2012, archaeologists excavating Wonderwerk Cave in South Africa discovered burned bone fragments and plant ash buried in sediment layers dating back 1 million years. Not near the cave entrance, where a wildfire could have drifted in by accident. Deep inside the cave, 30 meters from the opening, where fire can only exist if a human being carried it there deliberately. This is the oldest confirmed evidence of controlled fire in human history. But here is the thing almost nobody talks about. The first humans to control fire almost certainly did not make it. They stole it. Lightning strikes a dry acacia tree. A lava field in the East African Rift produces natural flares that burn for days. A grass fire sweeps across the savanna every dry season, igniting everything in its path and leaving smoldering logs behind. For hundreds of thousands of years before Wonderwerk Cave, the ancestors of Homo erectus watched fire happen around them. They saw what it consumed, they felt what it produced. And at some point, roughly 1 million years ago, one of them did something no creature had ever done before. They picked up a burning branch and carried it somewhere intentional. Think about what that actually required. Not just bravery, though approaching fire takes nerve when every instinct tells you to run. It required memory, planning, the understanding that this thing would die if not fed, and that feeding it meant gathering specific materials before it went out. It required communication, telling another person what you were doing and why. It required abstract thinking, managing a process across time rather than simply reacting to the immediate moment. In 1 million BC, that was not a small thing. That was the beginning of something. Now here is where the story gets genuinely hard to believe. Because controlling fire didn't just change what early humans could do at night, it physically changed what humans were. For millions of years before fire, early human ancestors spent roughly half of every waking day chewing. Raw tubers, tough roots, unprocessed meat. Your jaw was enormous. Your gut was massive, running the length of your torso, because raw food demands enormous digestive effort to break down and extract any useful calories from. Your brain, by comparison, was small, expensive tissue to maintain, difficult to justify when most of your energy went to digestion. Then, fire arrived. Cooked food changes everything at the biological level. Heat breaks down the cellular walls of plant matter before it enters your body. It denatures proteins in meat, making them far easier to absorb. A cooked tuber releases roughly twice the usable calories of a raw one. Twice. That means the same amount of food, treated with fire, produced double the energy. And that surplus energy went somewhere. The fossil record tells us exactly where. Around 800,000 years ago, roughly 200,000 years after Wonderwerk Cave, the skulls of human ancestors begin to change. Jawbones shrink, cranial vaults expand. Brain volume increases by roughly 50% over the next several 100,000 years. The brain that eventually painted the walls of Chauvet Cave 36,000 years ago, that carved the Lion Man of Hohenstein-Stadel 40,000 years ago, that buried its dead with flowers in Shanidar Cave 60,000 years ago, grew itself on cooked food. Fire didn't just feed human bodies, it built human minds. But the transformation goes further than biology, because fire did something no other development in the previous 2 million years of human evolution had managed to do. It changed the night. Before fire, when the sun set, the day was over. You found shelter. You stayed still. You waited. Every other species on Earth still does this. A lion rests at night not because it is tired, necessarily, but because night belongs to other predators. Even the hunters rest when they cannot see. But early humans with a maintained fire had something no predator could take from them: light. Warmth. A perimeter that apex predators instinctively refused to cross. Leopards, which had been killing and eating early human ancestors for millions of years, the skull of a 3-year-old Australopithecus africanus, found at Tong in 1924, still shows the puncture marks of a leopard's canines through both eye sockets. Do not approach fire. Cave hyenas, with a bite force of 1,100 pounds per square inch, animals that hunted in coordinated packs of 20 or more, did not enter firelight. The campfire created a circle of safety roughly 10 meters across, and inside that circle, for the first time in the history of any species on this planet, a group of animals could stop being afraid. What happened inside that circle changed everything. People talked, not grunts of alarm or warning calls, actual extended conversation, the kind that requires safety, comfort, and time. Anthropologists studying the few remaining hunter-gatherer societies that still live without electricity have documented a consistent pattern. Daytime conversation is practical. Who saw animal tracks? Which plants are ready? Disputes over sharing. But nighttime conversation, firelit conversation, shifts completely. Stories emerge, accounts of things that happened far away, descriptions of people no one present has met, ideas about why the sky looks the way it does, what happens after death, what invisible forces govern the world. Around 100,000 years ago, humans in Wonderwerk Cave on the southern coast of South Africa were drilling holes through seashells and stringing them together as jewelry. The nearest coastline where those shells could be found was 20 kilometers away. Someone walked 40 kilometers round trip to collect them, then spent hours carefully piercing them with stone tools. Not for food, not for survival, for beauty, for meaning, for something to wear around a fire and be seen. Around 40,000 years ago, in the Swabian Jura region of what is now Germany, someone carved a flute from the hollow bone of a vulture. 5 finger holes, precisely spaced. Whoever made this understood pitch. They understood that specific intervals between holes produce specific sounds. They spent days on it. Not for hunting, not for defense, for music, to play around a fire while others listened. This is what the firelit night produced. Not just warmth, culture, art, religion, music. The entire interior life of the human species, everything that separates us from every other creature that has ever lived on this planet, was built in the hours between sunset and sleep that fire made possible. So let's reconstruct a night 300,000 years ago. The hunt finished hours ago. The animal was butchered, the meat distributed, the bones cracked open for marrow. The fire has been burning since midday, fed carefully by whoever stayed at camp. As the light fades, the group pulls in closer. Children who ran and played all afternoon settle near the warmth. The oldest members of the group, the ones who cannot run fast enough to hunt, who are kept alive because the group keeps them, carry the most knowledge. They begin to speak. Stories about hunts that happened before anyone present was born. Warnings about valleys where predators den. Instructions for finding water in the dry season. Everything the group knows, everything it has ever learned, transmitted across generations, not through writing, not through books, but through the firelit dark, from one voice to the next, kept alive the same way the fire itself is kept alive, tended, fed, never allowed to go out. And the fire itself was never allowed to go out, not if a group could help it. Because making fire from nothing, striking stone against stone until sparks caught on dry tinder, drilling wood against wood until friction produced enough heat to ignite, was brutally difficult. The oldest confirmed fire-making tools, stone strikers showing the specific wear patterns of deliberate spark production, appear in the archaeological record around 400,000 years ago in Europe. Which means, for the 600,000 years between Wonderwerk Cave and those fire-making tools, humans used fire only when nature provided it. For 600,000 years, the ember was the most precious object any group possessed, more valuable than any spear, any tool, any piece of food. Losing the fire meant losing everything it provided. And so someone, always, was responsible for it. Someone tended it through the night. Someone fed it when it dimmed. Someone carried it when the group moved. This was possibly the earliest form of social responsibility in human history. Not leadership, not hierarchy, simply collective care for something fragile that kept everyone alive. And that collective care around something fragile and essential, that habit of organizing a group around a shared center, that may be what fire actually gave us more than anything else. Not warmth, Not cooked food, not protected sleep. A reason to stay together. A center. Something to gather around when there was nothing threatening you from outside. Something to tend, together, through the dark. Every human group that has ever existed has had a fire. Or something that functioned like one. A center, a shared source of warmth and light that people organized themselves around. That pattern is 1 million years old. It began in a cave in South Africa, where someone carried a burning branch into the dark and sat down beside it. And it never stopped.